Hey guys, so I want to do a series of tutorials on the very basic of Archviz in Unreal 4 engine. So the first one will be on how to export a 3ds Max scene with V-Ray materials, which is the most popular plugin for 3D Studio Max renderings. And just to export it to Unreal 4 for a walkthrough, real-time walkthrough. So first things first, we have a scene here, very simple one. As you can see, there's just a floor, wall, ceiling, and a couple of objects. Everything will work. So it doesn't have to be this simple, it can be a much more sophisticated scene, but for our purposes I'm going to show it on this scene. Let's unhide all. Okay, so in order to import it into Unreal 4, we first need to export this scene. So in order to do that, we go to Files, Export, and let's export it to, let's do a folder. I already did a folder, Datasmith Export. You can do a folder wherever you want. Let's call it exp. And you export it using the Unreal Datasmith exporter. You can get this exporter in the Epic Games launcher, and you can activate the Unreal Studio beta, and then you get the plugin for 3D Studio Max that you can download from here, and also the Unreal Datasmith importer for Unreal 4 that you can get from here. So you need to go to the Epic Games launcher, subscribe to Unreal Studio Beta, and you get both of these. So after you install them, you have the Unreal Datasmith exporter. So let's export this scene wherever you want. The exporter is super simple. You have only two options, visible objects or selection. We want to export all visible options, not only what we select. So I hit visible options and hit OK. Wait just a couple of seconds. And we get a warning that says that bitmaps are automatically converted to normal maps. This is a normal warning because 3D Studio Max uses bitmaps to do bumps, and Unreal Studio uses normal maps. So it just converts them automatically and lets you know about it. So that's it. That's all we need to do in 3D Studio Max. Just hit export and export the scene. In order to import the scene into Unreal, so after you installed Unreal 4, again using the Epic Games launcher, you can choose the engine version, and I'm using the latest one to date, which is 4.20.3. After you install it and you installed the Unreal Datasmith plugin, you launch the Unreal 4 software. Just wait a couple of seconds. Okay, so now we need to choose which projects we want to create. I want to create a new project, not one of these that I already created. The new project I want to create is Unreal Studio project, which is the basic project for the Unreal Studio plugin for Archviz projects. So Unreal Studio and blank. Let's call this tutorial. You can call it whatever you want, obviously, and now create project. So it creates the basic blank Unreal Studio project for us. Alright, so what we have here is a very simple blank scene. We have the floor here, we'll delete it later. We have the sun node here, which is the sun. We have the sky, which is this sky here. This is the skylight, I should say. This is what gives the lighting for our scene, and also the sun gives the lighting. This one is creating these clouds and sky that you can see. It doesn't actually affect the lighting of your scene, it just creates the sky here. The clouds are moving very slowly. This is very cool. So you have two lights that control the lighting in your scene, and one light that just shows you this pretty sky here. Also, you have this sphere here, which creates the reflection in our scene. And you have the player node. This is the player. This is where he begins, and this is his height and width. So you can go through corridors. If they are wider than this, you can go in. If not, you cannot. Okay, so this is the player character. Now I want to import what we exported from 3D Studio Max. I just hit import datasmith here. And I go to where I exported my files. In my case, it's in datasmith export. And I hit this file here. Hit OK. And it's a very simple importer also. You have only the geometry, materials, lights, and cameras. In my case, I have geometry and materials. I did not use lights in the scene, but you can import V-Ray lights if you want. It's no problem. Also cameras, everything can be imported in one click. Just hit import, wait a couple of seconds, and the scene will be imported. Alright, it's that fast and that easy. The scene has been imported with all the V-Ray materials. Everything is intact and everything is in the scene. Now I'm going to delete this floor here that was in the blank project because I don't need it. I have a floor of my own. And I'm going to leave everything else as is. Now you can go into the apartment. You can see you have reflections for the floor. You have the lighting coming in. Everything is great, imported perfectly. You have the materials set up. Everything is just set up. Alright, so that's the import. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to walk around this scene. Now if I hit play here, which is the walking around portion, what happens is I just fly through everything. So there is no gravity, I'm not walking on the floor, I'm just flying. Right? In order to walk around in my scene, what I need to do is I want to create a first-person game mode. So I can walk around in first person. To do that, I'm going to add new, add features or contact, and I'm going to add this first person from blueprints and features. Add to project. And now I have a first person game mode in my project. In order to set up this project as first person, you need to go to settings, project settings, go to maps and modes, and change this mode from game mode base to first person game mode. That is it. Now if you hit play, you can see that you fall through the floor. Alright? But the first person game is activated. Now let's go back to our scene. Alright. In order for us not to fall down through the floor, what I need to do is create collisions. So I essentially need to tell this node here, which is our player, where he can or cannot go. So for now this floor has no collision, so he just falls down through the floor because of gravity. Now what we need to do is choose this floor here, go into the static mesh of the floor. Alright, now this is the floor. Now we need to add collision to it. So I'm just going to go to collision and add box simplified collision. This is a very simple object. It's just a floor, just a plane. So I can add a box collision to it, no problem. It doesn't need to be a very complex collision like sofas or things like that. And after I did that, let's save. And let's try playing now. Alright, so now I'm walking on the floor. Alright, I can still go through this wall here and fall down. So to fix this, I need to add collision to our walls also. So let's choose the wall. Let's go to the static mesh of the wall. Now this one is more complex than the floor. You have walls here and everything. Now if I add just a box collision like I did for the floor, what will happen is the collision will be as a whole box, a filled box. So I can't move around inside the box because I will collide from the sides. This is no good for us. So what I need to do for this kind of objects, complex objects, is first of all, let's delete the collision, remove collision that I just created. And I'm going to go here into into collision complexity and just hit use complex collision as simple. What this does is just uses the whole mesh as is in order to create the collision for the walls. So it's a little bit heavier on the CPU, but it works perfectly. So now after I use this complex collision, I hit save, and let's try walking around now. As you can see, I bump into the wall. I cannot go through it. Alright, next thing that is bothering me is this gun here. It's great for games, but in our case, for architectural visualizations, we don't need a gun usually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this gun here. In order to remove it, I need to go to the... by the way, this part here is all the objects you have in your scene. So you have the export, which is what we exported from 3D Studio Max. You have the whole meshes here. You have the geometries from the lamp, from the furniture, from everything. You have the materials, and you have the textures. And also you have the first person that we imported into our scene in order to walk around. So in order to disable the gun, I need to go to first person BP, blueprints, go to blueprints, choose the first person character. Now it will open the blueprints. I will explain all about blueprints in the next lesson, but for now it will open the blueprint, the code for our first person. I want to go here to viewport to see what our first person sees. So we have the gun here. I don't want to see it, so I'm going to go down here and disable visible. Doing the same thing for the hands, I'm going to disable visible, and I'm going to save. Now let's try walking around. As you can see, you don't see the gun, but if you hit the left mouse button, it still fires projectiles. I don't want it to do that, so what I'm going to do is go back to first person character, and I'm going to go to the event graph, just move it around here, and you can see spawn projectiles, which is the things that the gun fires. I'm going to delete all this code here and compile, save. Let's try moving around now. So now if I hit the left mouse button, nothing happens because the projectile code is no more. Okay, so another thing I want to do is, as you can see, you have a red X in the center of your screen, which is the HUD for the gun. I don't want to see this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to first person HUD, and I'm going to delete all this code here, which is what creates our X. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to compile, save, and let's play now. No red X in the center of the screen. We can't go through the walls and through the floor, and you can walk around this beautiful scene we exported and see everything. Alright, so the last thing I want to do for this first lesson is I want to create realistic shadows in our scene. I want to bake the lights. Essentially, it's like rendering a V-Ray scene in 3D Studio Max. It does global illumination calculations and gives you realistic shadows. As you can see, for instance, now our ceiling is almost totally black. The shadows is not real. The scene does not look realistic. In order to add realism to the scene and bake a global illumination lighting into it, I need to build the light. Now I'm going to go into this in a second. In order to help the light build properly and effectively, I need to add a couple of things to my scene. The first thing I'm going to add is importance. Okay, so I'm going to hit importance here, and it will find what I'm looking for. It will complete what I'm searching for. Light mass, importance, volume. So this is a box. This box represents, if I go to the top viewport, represents where I want the software to add the lighting, to do the GI calculation. If I don't add this box, it will do a GI calculation all over the screen. So if I have objects here, it will calculate there, a global illumination, and it doesn't know where exactly to calculate. So essentially this will help the software know where you want the calculation to take place. So I'm going to place this box here in the center. I'm going to go to scale object, and I'm going to scale it up to the sides, scale it up to this side, and in front viewport I'm going to scale it up and move it down like so. Okay, so now as you can see, the box encompasses my entire scene, and when the global illumination calculation will take place, it will take place only inside this box I created. Alright, the next thing I want to do, I want to help light come in through the windows into my space. In order to do this, it's like light portals in V-Ray. Alright, in order to do this, I need to add light mass, like light portals in V-Ray 3D Studio Max. I'm going to add light mass portal. Alright, so I'm going to put these portals I created in the opening. So I have 1, 2, 3 windows and one big window to the balcony. So I'm going to move it to be placed exactly where the light is coming in. So let's scale it up like so. Move it a little bit here. Let's go to the front viewport and scale it up like so, and move it a little bit here. Alright, now let's go to the top viewport again, and I'm going to copy this light mass portal holding the Alt key and just dragging it, so it will copy an object if you hold the Alt key. Let's rotate this to this side, move it to the window here, and rescale it to fit the window. Alright, let's go to the front, rescale it like so, move it up like so, and let's Alt drag this to create a copy in this window, and Alt drag to this window, rotate and place. This is essentially exactly the same as light mass portals, as light portals in V-Ray. Alright, so after we put everything in place, let's see, so we have the portals to help the light come in our space. We have this box here to help the software know where to bake the light. We can do a simple bake. So in the bake rollout here, you have lighting quality. Now we have a preview all the way up to production. What we're going to do for this example is use the medium. When you use production, it's the highest quality, preview is the lowest quality. It's self-explanatory. So let's go medium and build this light. Now this section can take a bit of time. It depends on your scene. If you have a very complex scene, it can take up to an hour, but in our case it's gonna take a couple of seconds to finish, because we almost don't have anything in the scene. So it finishes, building the reflection capture, which is the reflection for the scene. And here we go. So if I move around the scene, you can see it build the light like V-Ray would. So you can you have ambient occlusion on the corners, and not a lot of light is coming through the window, so the space is pretty dark. We can fix that by adjusting the sun and the skylights. So let's make it a bit stronger. Now, one more thing to keep in mind. When we're baking light, the lights that are baked are only static lights. So if the light is set to stationary or movable, it will not be baked into the GI calculation. So now our sun our sky here is not contributing to the calculations, so I need to set it on static. The minus of doing this is you cannot move the sun in real time if it's static. Alright, but for now it's okay, so let's set the sun on static and the sky is already on static. Let's set the intensity of the sky on much higher, let's say 4, and the intensity of the sun, let's say 10, and let's bake this again. You can see the percentage here, building lighting. And here we go. Let's wait a couple of seconds for it to become clear. Okay, so now the scene is much more lit than before. As you can see, let's try walking around. Okay, so you have basic lighting in your scene. Of course you need to add interior lights, but we'll do this in another tutorial. Thanks for watching, and we'll continue this in part 2.